So we are still talking about IT, OT convergence. And those of you who have been around me for a while know that I hate that term. Yes, we do need to build technology bridges between operations and the enterprise, but convergence is weird, and basically it's only just moving data from one sort of database to another so that we can use it in that data in various ways. Hi, this is Gary Minchell. This is my podcast number 203, and I'd like to thank my sponsor, my long-running sponsor, Ignition from Inductive Automation. Get a whole new view on your operations and your business with Ignition from Inductive Automation. Last year, rewritten and updated into a even better technology and a lot of connectivity to Ignition, and I appreciate the long-running support from the fine folks out there in California. So I'm back from 2 weeks of travel. I went to the ARC forum in Florida, and it's perhaps the biggest gathering of technology people on the operations side, with some enterprise side thrown in for good measure. Actually, there was a press conference session on containers in Kubernetes, had maybe a first. A lot of OT people think of containers as something you fill up in China and put on a ship and send it over here. But anyway, that was interesting. And then I went to the preview session in Hanover, Germany, that had to do with the upcoming in April Hanover Messe. I hope I can make it, but I have so much stuff going on. I haven't really made plans, and it's getting awful late to do that. But perhaps I'll make it to Hanover. A lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of cool technology discussions at both ARC and in Hanover. And I'll start with a little bit, but I started this off with that IT/OT thing, and some of it had to do with a lot of the discussions I had in both places, in both Florida and Germany, had to do with the edge. Now, in the operations world, we really don't think very often or very much about the edge, probably because we are the edge. But and that's actually kind of a networking term, or an enterprise networking term, just for simplification purposes. And the IT people, though, have, of course, a broader view. Operations is just one of the black boxes that they connect with as they bring HR and sales and shipping and supply chain and everything together into one package, so that theoretically the enterprise can make better decisions at that level. But to me, IT/OT convergence is less technology. I mean, we just keep getting little bits and pieces, and I say little, but they're significant bits and pieces of technology that will move data from operations to enterprise and back as necessary, and that's really good. The real problem really has never been technology per se. I've watched this for, oh good God, 35 years. And I've seen various examples of big companies, for instance, General Motors back in the day, trying to divide up between the IT people and the operations people or OT people, where the wire goes. You get the wire to this point, they get the wire from that point, and so on. And I guess you have to do that in an organization. But mostly what it is an organizational problem. And what I'm seeing is good management, good leaders in a plant, for example, bringing the two together organizationally, not in one department, although they've tried that. That can be difficult, but it can be very good. But just getting the two leaders of the groups in that plant side by side, they put their offices next to each other, so the teams now come in next to each other, and that fosters the informal communications, which fosters formal communications. And what I'm seeing is a lot of that sort of thing. So that organizationally, I'm bringing these groups together so that when they have a whiteboard and somebody says, we've got this problem, you can bring the people together, right away and start to come up with joint solutions. Kind of interesting. I was up visiting my son and grandkids, and my 12-year-old grandson is working on a project, a technology project in his junior high school, and he's developing a website. And since he and I have developed a couple of websites for him, you can't find them, but they are in WordPress. But anyway, so they've got a big whiteboard that they've been drawing on for a lot of years, and we just sat down at the whiteboard and started sketching out different ideas for logos and things. And I thought just exactly what I tried to do as a manager 35 years ago, bringing whiteboards in when they were new, and putting one in every engineer's cubicle and a couple of others strategically placed, so that if you're discussing a problem on how to build a better machine or something, you can start sketching out on a whiteboard and then and just throw ideas out. And so we did that, and you can do the same thing if you move your teams in IT and OT a little closer together so that they can communicate, much more readily. Somebody told me when I broached that idea at one of the conferences, they said, "Oh, I saw a study that said if you're as much as 25 feet away from other people or another group, the chances of you actually interfacing with them and interacting with them on a even weekly basis is a very low probability that you probably aren't going to do it. So for all you leaders out there, if you want to get communications going, let's try some proximity and geography. But back to the edge, what I see is basically what I started out with: two different conversations going on. Operations is the edge, although we could redefine things and say that we have central processing and edges and stuff, but that's a lot of intellectual horsepower wasted on not much good. What I see on the IT side is basically IT companies looking for ways to expand enterprise IT, and they have huge compute power and server farms, and they usually piece together powerful networking groups within their company and that sort of thing. And now, what am I going to do? And I trace this back to the first SAP ERP installations a long time ago, where they said we can do this and this and this. Oh, oops. We need like real live data coming from the processor, the manufacturing, and we can't get it. And I've seen in the course of my writing career about this since 1999 or so for about 20 years, I've watched people coming up to solve the problem of getting data from, actual real trustworthy data from the process into the ERP system, wherever it needs to go in there, supply chain or quality or any of the MES applications or the ERP applications that need that sort of data. So I've watched these problems come up. So when IT is talking about that, what I first saw, and my first brush with this was with Dell, and they built a PC in a box with a whole bunch of ports and a lot of memory in it, called it a gateway, and said we can stick this out in the plant floor, plug in sensors and stuff, and do some massaging of the data, and then send it to the cloud. And part of the edge idea is we process locally so we don't have to tie up so much bandwidth sending it up to the cloud, which can get to be a problem. So they were the first ones that I saw doing that, and they were doing it with, I think, essentially PC technology, and then they started upgrading. But essentially that whole group has disappeared. The box itself has moved to the OEM division. Everybody I worked with has either been promoted over into the PC division or they're gone, and which is sort of amazing. But my question to them always was, and I lose a lot of clients this way by asking these questions in product development and in acquisitions, it has to do with, why are you doing this? And in Dell's case, it was, can you ever sell enough boxes to make Michael happy? Michael is used to selling gazillions of PCs, and how many of these little gateway devices are you going to be able to sell into manufacturing? Not gazillions. Then I went to, I made contacts with HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and they have a similar but slightly different take, and they've really stuck with it longer. Um, they took their compute platforms, some of them that are pretty powerful, and kind of the same thing, built a box and hardened it, and a lot of ports and a lot of stuff. And both companies tried to build ecosystems. HPE's ecosystem is interesting. I have written about a chemical refinery outside of Houston that has successfully implemented what they call an IoT solution with HPE hardware, along with a lot of other people. Um, the leader of the group, Tom Bradich, who's moved over to a different role, but still working in the same area, came from IBM to National Instruments, so enterprise IT into operations technology, and then on to HPE, where he worked with a group to combine them. Once again, though, the problem is they need to sell those boxes, but they can sell more than just the box. They can sell the box plus all kinds of partner add-ins in there and services and so on. A little broader offering, probably a better chance for success. And interestingly enough, well, some of the OT vendors, so if you take a Rockwell or a Siemens or Beckhoff or any of the other ones, and they approached it from the old Purdue pyramid thing, where the data goes through the programmable controller, and that has the capacity, starting years ago now, of data storage and data handling and so on as an adjunct to the PLC. The problem is when you start dealing with all that, you have to get into the program that also controls the process, and control engineers typically don't like to dink with that, because any opportunity that you have to get in, you have an opportunity to change the process and make things stop working, and then you got all kinds of problems. So typically they don't like to go through the controls program or system to get the data out to the enterprise. So it works to have a what was now called an edge device that takes the sensor data or feedback from anything. Anything can be a sensor. Motors have tons of sensors. Drives, variable frequency drives, self-start drives have lots of sensors within them with lots of data. Man, if all you have to do is measure a lot of things coming out of a motor, and you know an awful lot about what's going on in the process. But at any rate, so I see a lot of that, and I think we kind of had two conversations, but they're all pointing the same way, and it's just moving data. It's unlocking the process data and getting it into a usable format for other people. Some of the technologies we're looking at, though, there's really a surge of openness at the ARC thing. I talked to the open process automation people. The Linux Foundation has got some stuff going on. The Eclipse Foundation has stuff going on. So there's some interesting stuff on open source and open automation and open APIs and that sort of thing, which I think are good. Yes, if you have everything closed in your own proprietary system, you can optimize perhaps better, but you can't change better. And one of the problems end users have is, if I need to change, if something goes obsolete and I need to put a new thing in, and the best one doesn't come from the previous company, I'm in trouble. So the openness is good, and a lot of talk about 5G. I'm not sure. People seem to have mixed feelings on what 5G can do for you. Most of what I hear is the value, at least initially, of 5G is intra-plant, not interplanetary. So the technology with bandwidth and stability and so on is supposed to be very good, and very good for moving data around a plant, kind of like a broadband or maybe a Wi-Fi replacement or something like that. I'm hearing those kind of ideas. We'll see how it shakes out. It's pretty interesting. 5G is coming along, and we're even getting closer to now when your cell phone provider talks about 5G. Maybe it's getting close to actually being real 5G. Who knows? That we have been advertising or seen the advertisements, but it's not really 5G. It's kind of still LTE. But anyway, we're getting there, and that's all sounding good. So 5G was another one, Open was another one, and Edge. Those were kind of the big things that I'm picking up as I'm traveling around. And I think that it basically is just a way, we're all talking the same thing. We're unlocking data, and data wants to flow. And if we can get it to flow and flow in the right places and then make it usable, we're in good shape. So this is Gary Mitchell talking to you with my podcast number, what did I say, 204? But anyway, glad to be coming back at you. Thanks for listening. And remember, my sponsor, as always, is Ignition from Inductive Automation. You can go to inductiveautomation.com and check out Ignition and the other things that are going on there as far as connectivity and visualization and mobility and all the good things that come with Ignition. Once again, thank you for listening. Have a good day.